I'll just confirm when Jenny's messaged me to say that it's up and running.
Okay, I'll just hold on a second.
Okay, that's us live streaming, Chair.
Thank you. Well, a very good morning, everyone. I'd like to give you all a very warm welcome to Aberdeenshire Licensing Board on this date, Wednesday, the 18th of August, 2021. So we will, first of all, just a wee bit to read out. Please note that the board meeting today is being live streamed and will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. Can members activate their cameras wherever possible to enable you to join by video? And can all attendees please mute their microphones when not speaking? Please do not come in during items unless I invite you to do so. Can I please confirm that all members have been able to access the papers for today's meeting in advance? I take it that you have. If members wish to speak at any point, please notify me by the instant message function in the Skype meeting invite, or if you have dialed into the meeting today, indicate by stating your name and the item you wish to speak on, and I will bring you in at an appropriate time. If any members lose connection or have any technical issues during the meeting, please alert Deputy Clerk by Skype, instant message, if possible. Support will be available from Jason Simpson, ICT Officer, during the meeting if required. So we'll now go on to the agenda proper. We've got item 1 is Sergeant and Apologies. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take this route by roll call. If you could indicate if you're present. Mr. Peter Argyle.
I'm here. Sorry, I'm here. Good morning.
Mr. Stephen Calder.
Present.
Mrs. Marion Ewanson.
Present.
Mr. Alistair Forsyth.
Present.
Ms. Victoria Harper.
Present.
I've received apologies from Mr. Hutchison, Chair. Mr. Glen Reynolds.
Present.
Mrs. Anne Stirling.
Present.
Mr. Brian Topping.
Here.
Mr. Lee Wilson.
I'm here.
And can I also confirm Keith Simpson, Licensing Standards Officer, are you present?
I am present indeed.
Lisa Gadini.
Yes, here.
Sarah Ward.
Yes, here.
And we have apologies from Sergeant Flett. I can also advise that we have Alison Wood, our administrator, taking notes for the minutes today. We have Lindsay Fraser, our trainee solicitor, and we have Jenny Mearns, who is running our live stream for us. A correction to the note that the chair read: if you need IT support, it will now be Tiago Alves that you need to contact and not Jason Simpson. So it's Tiago Alves if you need support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, and to our new officers that are here and our trainee, very warm welcome, and hopefully you find today's meeting of interest to you. So we'll move swiftly on to item 2, board members, declarations of members' interest. If members can please state if you have any interest to declare, and if you have, please clarify the item number, the nature of the declaration, and whether or not you will leave the meeting. I take it silence means that there's no declarations to declare. So thank you very much for that. Move on to item 3, resolution of equalities. Do you agree to the resolution of equalities?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That is agreed. Now, I'm taking, just before we go to the minutes, board members and officers, we know that the tragic passing of one of our LSOs, Trevor Lackey, quite recently. Just to make you aware, actually on behalf of the board, I've been in touch, and the officers through Fiona Stewart have kindly sent a card to his wife and son, passing on our condolences, and our thoughts are with them. I would, if the board's happy, I would like to read a very small bit about Trevor, and after that I'm proposing a minute's silence Thereafter, we'll go on to the normal meeting. Trevor joined Aberdeenshire Council in March 2019, having previously worked in the retail sector, most recently with the Co-op. Trevor was a man of great stature, which earned him the tag Big T. He was genuinely a nice man and was always went out his way, both for the trade and also his colleagues. He was an avid Celtic supporter, and even the week he passed away whilst in hospital, he was watching his beloved team in a European tie on his phone. Trevor was a quiet person, but had a wicked sense of humour, and would often drop in a one-liner at meetings to lighten the mood, which was always very much appreciated. Trevor was based in Peterhead and had the responsibility for all licensing in the Buchan area. As well as working with the hospitality operators in the area, he was also instrumental in partnership working in projects such as the Gadel Braes, Bonfire, etc. He will be sorely missed within the LSO team and also within the wider licensing community of the trade, licensing board and previous forum. Our thoughts are with his wife and son at this time. So at this stage, board members and officers, I'd like to propose a minute's silence. Thank you. Thank you, board members. I'm sure we've all taken the time in the minute silence to think of your time with Trevor and the work that he did for the licensing board and for the licensing trade. So we'll move now on to the agenda proper, and we have the next item, which is approval of the minutes. The minute is for approval as a correct record only. Can we agree it's a correct record, please?
Chair, are you taking silence as approval?
Oh yes, I am indeed. Thank you. Thank you. Right, so the next item is item 5 on the agenda, application on premises licence non-contentious. We'll take each, well, there only is one. So the first one I'll ask our Fiona to go through. It's Twiceberry Rum Co. Contour. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a premises licence. It's within a residential property, and it's going to be for off sales, for deliveries, remote sales of alcohol only. He's a sole trader, and he's operating under the name of Twiceberry Rum Company. The details of the application are as within the report. Representations were made by the police, licensing standards officer, building standards, and there were recommended conditions, which I'll go through shortly. Certificate of confirmation relating to the site notice has been received. The applicant has agreed several local conditions, and as well as the local conditions, has agreed specific conditions to ensure that nobody can actually attend the premises in person to buy alcohol, so the sales are remote, and we have the usual additional conditions relating to delivery of alcohol. I'm happy to take questions, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Fiona. Is there any questions at all? If not, it looks quite straightforward, so we're happy to agree. Take silence as agreement. So thank you, board members, for that. So we now move on to the next item, item 6, applications for major variations non-contentious. Can I please ask the members will consider each one in turn. The first one is Campfield Shop, Glasshill in Bankery. Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is for an off-sale shop that is currently in existence. You'll see from the report on page 36 of your papers, they're applying to extend their operating hours by half an hour daily to 8 p.m. It's well within the maximum permitted trading hours. And also they've relocated their alcohol display, which is resulted in a very small increase in their alcohol capacity. They've submitted their certificate of confirmation. I would point out that building standards initially had an issue, but a building warrant has been issued, so they have withdrawn their comments, and the applicant has accepted all recommended local conditions as set out in the report, and there are no conditions, additional conditions specific to the application. Happy to take questions on that, Chair.
Thank you very much, Fiona. Is there any questions, please? If not, again, quite straightforward, everything complied with, so we're quite happy to agree. That's fine, I'll take silence as agreement. So the second one we have is Molly's Cafe Bar in Stonehaven. And Fiona, please.
Thank you, Chair. You'll see from page 38 of the report, the board papers, that the applicant is adding off-sale hours 7 days a week in addition to his on-sale hours. He's doing so to allow him to sell alcohol with remote orders of food and to do alcohol deliveries. He's also adding an outside drinking eating area with a capacity of 28, and although he's reduced his capacity indoors, with the addition of the outdoors area, it has slightly increased his capacity overall. The papers do say that the certificate of compliance has not been submitted. I can confirm that officers have now received the certificate of compliance. Representations were made regarding conditions. The conditions are as set out in the report. You'll note that planning had an issue, but they are now satisfied that all matters can be resolved by way of a planning application for the canopy for the outdoor area. So you'll see that there are local conditions and there are specific conditions, the usual ones relating to alcohol delivery and remote sales of alcohol. I will say that we have some new conditions in respect of the outside drinking area here relating to the street cafe consent that the applicant requires to obtain from the Road Service of Aberdeenshire Council. We've done some work with our colleagues in the Road Service to make sure that both this Road Service and licensing are giving consistent advice to applicants to ensure that street cafe consents are in place, but also to ensure that if street cafe consents expire and are not reapplied for or not obtained, then alcohol cannot be sold in those outdoor areas. So we're trying to assure the sort of one Aberdeenshire approach to make sure that licence holders are know exactly what they've got to do and why. So those are new conditions that you may see attaching to outside areas moving forward. Again, I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Fiona. Any questions, please? Mrs. Stirling.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Fiona. I just would like some assurance for the board, please, that because of the increase of the outdoor area, what measures have been taken by the applicant to ensure that all objectives are being met in terms of or in light of the variations, but particularly around children and young persons. I would just like for some, looking for some assurance, please.
You had a good point. Fiona, please.
Are you addressing that to the Licensing Standards Officer in the first place, or do you wish me to bring up the Licensing Objectives Risk Assessment and display that on the screen?
If the Licensing Standard Officer are able to comment, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Is that you, Keith?
Yes, that's me that covers the Stonehaven area. So, yes, just to give you a little bit of background, this is just, I'm adding some tables and chairs outside to what is predominantly a kind of cafe bistro style premises. Children and young persons access wouldn't be a major concern here, given the fact the sale of alcohol is very much ancillary to the provision of food. It is predominantly an eatery rather than a drinking establishment. As Fiona says, we would have asked for an updated risk assessment based on the 5 licensing objectives, which should cover the outside area as well. So I feel that there's no major issues with regards to the licensing objectives, and I'm quite sure and confident, and I'd be assured that licensing objectives have been taken into consideration here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Simpson, and thank you, Chair. I am assured by that response. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Before we move away from this report, you will have noted from the minutes that we should have had an application before the board for a co-op at Strawberry Field. I think it's in Dice, that was deferred from the last board. It was due to come back to this board. The reason it has not been brought back to this board is that the agents are still trying to get instructions from their clients with regard to local and specific conditions that are being proposed for the licence. So this will automatically now be deferred until October, and we'll bring it forward as soon as the solicitors are in a position to give us updated information. So it's through no fault of ours that it's not been able to be brought to this board, but we'll bring it as soon as we can. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that information. But just to go back to Molly's Cafe Bar Stonehaven, is that agreed?
Agreed.
I take silence as agreement, so thank you for that, just for the record. So we now move on to our second last item, which is item 7, Equalities Mainstream Report and Equalities Outcomes for 2021 to 25. And I think just before I bring Fiona in, I think just really on behalf of the board, I'm quite sure, is to give a huge thanks to Fiona and her team. The amount of work that has obviously gone into this and is still ongoing is really quite remarkable with all the pressures that staff are facing. But with that comment, as convener on behalf of the board, Fiona, pass over to you please to take us through the paper, and then we'll obviously eventually look at the recommendations on page 51. Fiona.
Thank you, Chair. There's 2 parts to this report. As a public authority, we're under a duty every 2 years to provide what's called a mainstreaming report, which indicates or provides evidence of how we've been complying with our equality outcomes, how we've been promoting equalities, how we've been complying with our statutory duty. And then every 4 years, we also have to set new equality outcomes for the following 4 years. So our last mainstreaming report was in 2019. We are a bit late this year with reporting, but the Equalities Commission is aware that COVID has played a huge part in delaying the amount of work that we would have liked to have done, so we are a bit behind, but we've kept them updated at every step of the way. So what you have before you, Chair, at page 82 of your papers is the section in the mainstreaming report, which is a joint report compiled by Aberdeenshire Council, the Licensing Board, and Aberdeenshire Council as Education Authority. They do a joint mainstreaming report evidencing how we've complied with existing equality outcomes, and you'll see at section 13, which as I say is on page 82 of your papers, the paragraph relating to the licensing board. We have acknowledged the fact that COVID has played a part in compliance, but we've also advised that we've set up a new licensing board. We have Equality Service Champions, Mr. Glen Reynolds, our members Equality Service Champion, and I'm the Officer Equality Service Champion. We've also adopted the Council's corporate report template style, agenda style. So as you're very aware, we acknowledge equalities at the start of every agenda, and equalities is inbuilt into every report. The equality impact assessment we've used up till now has moved on, and you'll see attached as Appendix 4 to this report an example of the new integrated impact assessment that you will see where such an assessment is needed moving forward, and there's a very comprehensive one attached to this report. And we've also adopted Aberdeenshire Council's accessibility standards in relation to ensuring that documents that we publish are accessible by all. We've highlighted the statutory requirement for applicants for new licences to lodge disabled access and facility statement, and in the last 2 years we had 13 applications in 2020, and we've had 12 to date so far in 2021. For the first time ever, I'm pleased to report that we have case studies to present. These relate to a case study, one by the former Central Aberdeenshire Divisional Board and one by this board, relating to objectors to, first of all, a new licence, and secondly, a major variation where disability was raised as an issue, and equality impact assessments were drawn up for both of those, and actually played an important part in the decision in setting the type and the nature of conditions to apply to the licences. So it's the first time we've ever been able to provide a case study, and I'm pleased to say that those are included. If you then move to page 119 of your papers, I've provided in more detail how we've met the equality outcomes as set out in the action plan to our current policy statement. Because the board is a separate public authority, the board has to have its own policy and its own action plan, but we took the view some years ago that joint working to ensure consistency across the three authorities was the way to go. I've created a traffic light system for compliance. It's been difficult because officers have acknowledged during reviewing the equality outcomes that our outcomes were more of an aspirational nature than something that we could demonstrate compliance with, and that is something that officers have started to work on, as you will see in the new equality policy, and we will continue to work very closely with the equalities team to improve our evidence of compliance and promotion of equalities moving forward. So it's very much a work in progress. Pleased to say we have a number of green items that we've already complied with, a number that are ongoing issues. I'm disappointed to report that we have an outstanding issue in relation to adding equality questions onto our customer satisfaction surveys, but we will be picking this up again with our equality colleagues to see if their corporate report approach can be taken. If not, we'll look at doing something for the board itself. So that demonstrates what we've already complied with. Moving on to Appendix 3, which should be at page 126 of your papers, you have the draft equality policy for the next 4-year period, along with the quality outcomes that the board will directly comply with. I would explain that of the 6 proposed equality outcomes that Aberdeenshire Council has put into place, the board can directly adopt 2 of those, and those are in relation to disabled access inclusion, and also making sure as we move more into digital strategies that we don't leave those that don't have access to technology, those who are vulnerable, behind, so that we are inclusive. The other 4 objectives relate directly to Aberdeenshire Council, but we cannot ignore those because the staff and elected members that make up the board are elected members and staff of Aberdeenshire Council, so we will support Aberdeenshire Council in moving forward the work that they do to comply with those 4 equality outcomes. I'm happy to take on board any questions. I'm happy to make any changes that you want changed. I am asking for delegated authority to make the minor changes to the policies that are needed every year, such as adding in the statistics. Please note that the licensing forum folded, so we've not been able to consult with the forum on this policy. But again, if the forum is re-established to enable us to update the policy without a formal review, we will of course notify the board of any changes made, why they've been made, and the fact that they've been published. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see, Anne, you had a thing. I think that was the last item, so I'll take in Glen Reynolds, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Fiona, for that comprehensive summary there. I make this brief statement as the being in the privileged position of being the Equalities Champion for the Licensing Board. This is a very timely piece of work, and all those involved in its preparation need to be congratulated. I know that an awful lot of work has gone into this, so congratulations not least to you, Fiona. It's presented in a very accessible manner, but I do appreciate, as you've mentioned, that it's a live document, it's a work in progress, and I don't have any problems in terms of the recommendations. I'm pleased to see the incorporation of the integrated impact assessment and the case studies. In indicating the ongoing work that we have carried out around disabilities as one example, in terms of our commitment to the equalities agenda. I also appreciate that the document indicates a direction of travel in terms of improving measurement of outcomes, which has been stated by Fiona, and also the involvement of groups. I recognise that the absence of the forum does actually create a potential issue in relation to one aspect that I will raise now. But one of the aspects of COVID and the pandemic, of course, has been that, not least in relation to the activities and duties of this board, that in terms of communications, I'm pleased to see the approaches that have been taken, set out in this document, in terms of accessing information, interpreting information, and actioning and applying for information and all that is necessary in terms of making our board absolutely functional in its new position as the sole board across the Shire. The issue that I raised earlier is in relation to us embracing activity around the lived experience. I think it's very important that we work with those protected groups and individuals which have lived experience, and I see no reason why that should not be applicable to this board as it is across the council. So I would ask that, albeit made more difficult in the absence of the forum, what interaction could there be with the trade in order to firm this up and to indicate and evidence the fact that we are incorporating lived experience in the way that this paper is designed and the service which we provide to the community. I would recommend, I would suggest that there is some work, a body of work that could be done in relation to the formulation of policies at the moment, which have been worked upon by Council Officer Lynn Gravener, for example. But I make that simply as a suggestion, as a way forward. But I think that there is a gap here, and it is an understandable gap in light of the situation that we are in now. But I think it's a very valuable piece of evidence that needs to be added to this jigsaw puzzle, that we incorporate evidence from people with lived experience. And I think that will help us as we go forward. And if there is a mechanism that enables us to engage with the trade in the absence of the forum, then that would be very meaningful. All of which, Chair and Fiona, leads me to the conclusion that this document is something which I recognise is a day-to-day aspiration and a longer-term aspiration, that it actually means something in terms of what we have achieved and what we hope to achieve, and that we have every expectation that we will evidence that. Thank you.
Thank you, Glen. I know that you take your role very seriously as the Equalities Champion for the board, so thank you for that and thanks for your input. Fiona, do you wish to comment before I bring in Mr. Stephen Calder, please?
Just to say that I'm happy to take that away. I'm working very closely with Lynn Gravner anyway, so we'll certainly look at that and how we can bring that lived experience to the work of the board and the evidence of how seriously we treat equalities moving forward. So I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you. Stephen, please.
Thank you very much, Convener. I'm very pleased to see this report coming forward, and I'd like to add my support to the comments made by Mr. Reynolds, the Licensing Board Equalities Champion. Equalities is a human right issue, basically, and I'm very pleased that Aberdeenshire Council and our Licensing Board is in the forefront of promoting these equalities issues. As you say, it's a living document. We've come a long way in this. In my time, I can, from my experience, I could say 48 years ago, I proposed a motion on equalities in the Student Representative Council of Aberdeen University in 1973. And it's a different world now. We've come a long way, and it's very much to be supported. So I commend this very important and intense piece of work. Commend Lynn Gravner and Fiona Stewart in working together to produce this document. As I say, it's something, it's very welcomed, and I'm very much pleased to see how far we've come in the time that I've been involved in promoting equalities. So thank you very much for the work that's been done. And as I say, it's something moving forward. Society's moving on. There are still issues to be raised, for equalities and a whole range of issues, but it's something we're determined to take forward. And this is, as I say, an important piece of work in that step. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm sure the comments that Glen and yourself have made would be echoed by the board as to my earlier comments at the start of this item. Is there any other comments? If there's not, I would like to perhaps add a suggestion to be taken away by yourself, Fiona, and your team, is the fact that there is no forum. And again, COVID hasn't helped with a lot of places being closed and what have you. Whether to see if the forum could be, if there was any interest to resurrect it, or the possibility, as in housing, and I know that Anne Stirling, obviously wearing her councillor's hat, is chair of the committee that deals with housing on the council, where we have armchair tenant representatives who can be contacted for their views and comments on policies or various things. I'm just wondering, as I say, to look at trying to, the fact that COVID's sort of well, I won't say coming to an end, but we're in a new sort of situation where pubs and clubs and licensed premises are back open again. Whether there is any interest for a forum to get it started again, and if not, is there any way that it might be a possibility to have armchair people that would be from the trade who would be happy that would be contacted, so we can get an opinion and we can be scrutinised as a board, for example. And looking at the qualities and all other things that are in this paper, I think might be a possible way forward. So would the board be happy that could be at least looked at? I take silence means yep. So Fiona, would you be happy that just no rush obviously, but just when you've time to look at that possibility?
I'll certainly take that off table, Chair, and again I'll speak to housing colleagues to see how it's been established there, and I'll work with Lynn and seeing how we can bring that to the table.
That's fine. So if there is no other points on that, we'll look at page 51, which is the recommendations, Rather than me read them all out, are you happy that we agree those? I take silence means that we're quite happy with the recommendations here on page 51. So with that, we'll move on to item 8, which is the date of the next meeting. Can I ask members please to note the date of the next board meeting, which is Wednesday the 13th of October 2021. I can now confirm that the meeting has now been concluded and that the recording will be stopped. Thank you for your interest in this business and your participation in the meeting today. Have an enjoyable rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.